Hello, hello. It is December the 11th, 2024. We are in the throes of the holiday season. Christine, welcome to what is your last webinar for the year, at least last webinar for the year for Insightful Accountant. So thanks for hanging in with us through the year here. We appreciate it, but we can't start any of these without the question of the day, which again, I haven't really thought of, but it is festive time, it's holiday time. What is worse? And I don't want to be negative, but so we're gonna do two. It's just gonna be what's
Okay.
worse, and then we'll
Okay.
have a positive one. So
Okay.
what's worse? Pulling all of the stuff out of the
Uh,
attic or the basement or wherever it is that you have it stuffed, or putting it back in. So setting everything up or tearing it down, which one's
Tearing
worse?
it down, hands down, tearing it down. Like there's something like a little joyful and like exciting about the pulling. Like they're both annoying, but at least when you're putting it up, it's like, oh, the Christmas music is on and we got the
Right?
eggnog and the cookies out. Putting it away is in January, so it's just
Yep.
like dark and cold and it's over and there's nothing to look forward to other than lugging it back up to the attic.
Yes. Now, since you said pulling it out is better, I'm going to assume that you're not the one that's putting it in the attic.
I can't. It's too heavy. I
See?
mean,
Yep.
I can assist. I can be the assistant, but yes, I'm not the one that's putting it
Yep.
away.
Yep. It's like when my wife says, "Hey, let's paint that bathroom." I'm like, let's
Eh,
paint the bathroom.
yeah,
I don't
which
know.
would
Last
imply an us, but there's really
would
no
look
us
like
involved.
two people. It
Yep.
usually starts with two people, and then all of a sudden it's me by myself. I'm like, where'd she go?
Most of our
Um,
home projects are like that. They start with my good ideas.
right? Well, they got to start somewhere. All right. So we're going to end the questions on a positive. It's got to be about food. It's the holiday season. So what's on the table for Christmas? Probably different from Thanksgiving, maybe not. And what's your favorite thing on the table?
Um, my mom always makes ham for Christmas, which is really exciting. But my family has a tradition of doing like an appetizer spread the night before Christmas. So Christmas Eve is like scallops wrapped in bacon and like
Mm,
all those really good appetizers that, everybody skips the rest of the year because they're
yeah,
just too fancy. So I
right.
think that's my favorite is Christmas Eve and the appetizer spread.
We do that too. We do the Christmas Eve appetizers. Nothing that we don't do the same every year, so it's just kind of whatever seems to be on the
Everybody,
menu.
yeah,
Yeah. And
it's
then
fun.
yeah. And now we've started to we used to do turkey again at Christmas, but now we do a beef tenderloin.
Oh,
That
yeah,
has
we've done that before too. That's a
yeah,
big hit.
yeah. So all right, now everybody's hungry. I guess we should actually do some work so we could try to pay for all these meals and the gym memberships we're going to need to get all the pounds off
Yeah, after.
afterwards. Yes. All right. So welcome everybody. Welcome to the December edition and the last edition of the year of QB Talks, streamlining year end advanced QuickBooks integration for modern tax workflows. My name is Gary Dehart, and I am your host and the publisher of Insightful Accountant. And our presenter is Christine Gervais, CPA, writer, trainer, firm owner, etc. But before I turn it over to her, I do want to make sure we do have some housekeeping items. And number one, Matt, if you would throw up the poll about the Be Insightful premium content program, that would be great. We do have, if you'd like some more information on this program, basically it is a 9 session program, and we have 9 training tracks throughout the year. We typically do 3 in a month. We have the Coach's Corner, as you can see in front of you, Coach's Corner, app comparison, the tech stack, your tax practice, which Christine hosts for us, your firm. We've got an automations track, marketing track, human resources track, and then Murph's, that last one is the migrations track. So throughout the year, again, pretty much any given month, we'd have 3 of these. Sometimes there's 4, sometimes there's 2. But one key thing is that each one of these will have a follow-up workshop, typically 1 to 2 hours a day after. Bursts are typically about a week after. And even in automations with Kyle Turif, he's actually pivoting a little bit where instead of doing hey, I'm going to do 1 o'clock on the day after, he has said, look, I'll do one-on-one sessions with people. So instead of having to bring your issue to a group of people, you can bring it directly to him and he'll help you work through whatever that issue may be. So If you would like some more information on it, the program right now is priced, I think, $4.99. We do have a $1 first month and then $49 a month after that. So a couple of options of the way you can pay to join. You can hop in for $1 for the first month, test it out. If you don't like it, cancel. So there we go. Matt, you can go ahead and close that out. I don't know if that's still open. I guess I see a different view. All right. Now on to the other housekeeping items. I've lost my Word doc. Here we go. All right. So this is a CPE eligible webinar. And just like all the other ones, you have to be here 50 minutes. You have to answer at least 3 of the poll questions. If you participated in the first one, you already got 1. If you meet this criteria, we will send you your certificate within about 24 hours. And if you have any questions during the webinar, please put them in the Q&A. Chat is disabled, I believe. So just put them in the Q&A. Everything will be right there together. You will receive an email following this event with a link to the archive, which will be posted to our YouTube channel. Actually, this one, yeah, will be posted to our YouTube channel. We'll also drop that link into the chat, and we'll drop a copy of the presentation into the chat as well. You'll also get a link to that afterwards as well. After this event is over, there will be a quick survey that should pop up. If you wouldn't mind just giving us 1 more minute of your time, answer the 3 short questions on that survey so we can just provide some feedback to the speakers. So again, Christine, thank you so much for getting us here to December, and we will turn it over to you, and it's all yours. Everybody have a great holiday season. Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. All right. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for allowing me to guest host. Give me 1 minute to get the screen shared up here, because, of course, that is always my hardest part while we're giving technology presentations. All right.
And Christine,
And
it does look like the chat actually is open too. So sorry, you got
okay.
two places to chat.
No worries at all. So I will try to keep both of those open. Got it. Okay. And let me just pull up the chat. So I am probably, just so everybody knows, going to keep a closer eye on the Q&A. If you have something that you specifically want me to answer for you, please try to pop it into Q&A. I'll try to keep an eye on both, but I know that a lot of the times participants will chat amongst themselves too. So I tend to keep a closer eye on the Q&A box if you have something that you want me to specifically address. But again, thank you all for being here. I appreciate it. I'm sort of your guest host for the month. As Gary mentioned, I typically host our tax talks and our tax-related premium content. Our firm specifically is full service, so we do bookkeeping, but I tend to be a little bit more tax focused, which is why we're going to talk about how to prepare books and close books efficiently and with some technology involved this year. So don't worry, if you don't prepare tax returns, this is still totally relevant for you. At the end, I'm actually going to talk about how to build good tax strategic partnerships. So if you're not preparing taxes, how to still take advantage of the fact that you're just going to be a really fantastic, efficient bookkeeper and providing those tax partners with some really great books. So that will definitely address, no worries. All right, let's get going. So I don't need any more introduction, but if you haven't met me, my name is Christine Gervais. I am a licensed CPA. As I mentioned, we run a full service, fully remote practice. And so a lot of technology involved. I'm constantly looking for what's the right tech stack, what's going to make us the most efficient, how do we do more with less in terms of cost, and also how do we just get our people to be spending their time on the highest quality things that we can, and how do we really leverage technology to be doing a lot of the repetitive tasks, some of that harder work for us. So what I tried to focus on with this specific presentation is how to use integrations and workflows that are out there for you to combine your QuickBooks knowledge and your QuickBooks tech stack with other pieces of technology that are really just going to make the end of your year more efficient, meaning how do we close year end, get ready for tax prep in a way that doesn't involve us having to spend tons of time diving into all of our individual sets of books. The handout, the slide deck is in the chat. If you want to grab that, go ahead and download that. But before I dive in too deep, I'm not going to talk about a ton of different tax prep stacks today because that's not really our focus. But I will ask my first polling question because this is more from curiosity standpoint. If you don't prep taxes, you can just pick whatever you want. But just curious, what tax technology are you using right now? So if you are using a tax preparation software, does your firm currently integrate with QuickBooks? And I'm curious what that integration is. So we'll just give Matt a minute if you can pull up that first poll question for us, and we'll see what everybody is using for tech stack. This, for those of you who are doing tax prep, this will also help guide our future presentations to know what the majority of you are using in terms of integration. And if you missed it last week, we did Tax Academy, and that was recorded. Really great presentation from ProConnect if you're not currently using them and you're curious how that integration works. Really beautiful integration with QuickBooks. And you can go check that out on our YouTube channel. So we'll leave that open for another minute. Anita, it is totally missing from our list. I know. I wanted to be fair and just give everybody fair airtime, but it should have been up there for sure. And again, you can definitely go onto our YouTube channel and check out the recording of Tax Academy from last week. They did a really beautiful demo, and we talked about some great integration. So, all right, leave that up there for like 10 more seconds. Give everybody a chance to answer the poll questions. Don't forget to do that if you're looking for your CPE certificate, and then we'll close that out and see what you guys told me. I should have just given you an other option too. I did give you another option. Perfect. So if you're using something other than what was listed, of course, I couldn't list everything. Feel free to pop it in the chat and just kind of share what are some of the things that you're using. And we'll see if you're using ProConnect or something else that wasn't on the list. Okay, so just kind of diving into automating workflows and some of the things that are that I have found helpful. David Drake with no integration. Okay, cool. So then we'll talk about some of that today. So I used QuickBooks to ProConnect integration as an example here, but hopefully this is helpful for all of you who are potentially looking to make that whole book to tax process easier or make your wrap up of your books easier so that you're making the tax preparer's job easier. And again, I'll talk at the very end, I think it's the very last slide, about, setting you up to build good strategic relationships with tax preparers so that if tax isn't something that you're doing right now, but you're referring that work out, how to take advantage of the fact that, you're really going to be an advanced user in terms of preparing your books for those tax preparers. So integrations to take advantage of, and like I said, ProConnect is a beautiful one. You can send finished books right to tax prep. You can create some really beautiful, easy tax mapping reports, push real-time edits to returns. So that is this specific integration. Again, I just used this one as a particular example, and we have that great recorded demo from last week, but I know that there's some other softwares that do this as well. So in terms of looking for integration or looking at how integrations work to make your life easier, or again, if you're not the one preparing the taxes, this is a really nice value add that you can promote to some of the tax preparers that you're working with as to why they maybe want to offer a discount to your clients or maybe offer you some type of rev share for referring your bookkeeping clients to them for tax prep. Because your ability to service these integrations or to create that integration as an available item for them is going to save them a ton of time during tax season. So with ProConnect specifically, you can have your finished books in QuickBooks push right to the tax preparation software with ProConnect. I know you can do it with others as well. And my primary concern from a practitioner standpoint and somebody that's prepped taxes for a long time is I remember when book to tax integration initially started and we could all of a sudden magically push numbers into the tax return. And the biggest concern there for years was that things would maybe go onto tax return lines that we didn't want them to go to, or we didn't know where they would go, and then you'd have to try and find them. And that made a lot of practitioners a little uneasy about just clicking a button and sending all of this information into a tax return. So one of the things that's really, really beautiful about ProConnect, and again, you can go watch the recording and see all of this if you're not currently using it or you just want to see how it works, how it might be different from an integration that you're currently using. Also, something that you should be asking, like if you are looking at an integration for a different piece of tax prep software, this is definitely something that you want to ask about. What do your tax mapping reports look like? So of course, we have the ability to map all of our line items in QuickBooks. Everything in QuickBooks has the ability to have a tax account mapped to it. And that's really going to tell us where it's going on the return. And with ProConnect and QuickBooks, you can run that beautiful tax mapping report. So it will actually print out, instead of like a financial statement like a P&L or balance sheet, the mapping report of where every item on your chart of accounts is going does a really beautiful job of putting any non-mapped accounts at the bottom in case there is any and you need to move them, or maybe they're not mapped for a specific reason. And so those tax mapping reports are a huge time saver in terms of reviewing tax returns, or some line item doesn't look correct once the documents have been pushed over to the tax return. That mapping report just kind of takes away that fear and anxiety about hitting that button and not being 100% sure where information is going to go. And then pushing real-time edits on returns is really important as well. Again, this is something that you want to be asking about, looking for, or if you're already using ProConnect, great, because it's there. But when we're using that push over of information from QuickBooks to any tax software, you want the real-time edit feature, because if you have to make a change in the books for whatever reason, let's say all of a sudden client gets back to you and, oh, we forgot about this invoice that should have been accrued at the end of the year. We want to add it, and that's important because we're filing our tax return on the accrual basis and we need to make those changes. With the real-time edits, as soon as that information is edited in QuickBooks, that information can be pushed back over to the tax return to make real-time updates. So this integration, and again, just using ProConnect as the example, there's lots of tax prep softwares that have this type of an integration. But these key features are really important to actually driving efficiency. And that's kind of the name of the game here today, is how do we make this easy on you, easy on whoever's preparing the tax return, whether or not that's someone in your team or not. We're looking to make the technology work for us. We don't want it to just do a process and then create a different type of work where we have to go back and try to find things. So these pieces are really kind of the key drivers in terms of a QuickBooks to any tax software integration being super useful in terms of actually prepping those returns. Awesome. I definitely see some Lacerts in here. Drake, ProConnect, My Tax Prep with Canopy. Nice. Different variations. And again, like I said, I'm just giving you some examples of some things that I think work really well and have some great processes. There's lots of other options out there, but for the sake of time today, I wanted to just kind of give you some things to look at and consider that I think are really going to help. So Smart Vault, I know, is another really popular product. I did last week, for those of you who are asking about ProConnect, ask them on our demo whether or not there was a Smart Vault integration coming in the future. And they said probably yes. So that's something exciting to look forward to. I think that they were hoping to roll it out sooner, but it does sound like that's something that is coming down the pipeline. But in terms of your workflow management, this Smart Vault integration and workflow is really, really beautiful in terms of adding your company QuickBooks files right into Smart Vault, attaching documents, also able to attach right to journal entries, and then sharing those QB files. It sort of is working as this client portal as well as document management at the same time. And just in terms of accessibility and finding information, this is another area where if you are not both the bookkeeper and the tax preparer, using something like this gives you a lot of value add in terms of saying, hey, tax preparer, we have captured all of this information already. So we really have everything that you could possibly need to prepare the return in one organized spot. We can access it, our clients can access it. Access from a mobile device really creates a lot of opportunity for those tax returns to be prepared efficiently. And then outside of just tax return prep, I think that probably most of us have this experience with our clients. I talk a lot about things that make communication with clients easier on a lot of the webinars that we do. Communication back and forth with clients seems to be the number one pain point for a lot of us, is just getting the information that we need from our clients, right? Like, we have questions, they haven't given us the answers to things, and we need to collect documents from them. So inevitably what happens at the end of the year is we've sort of snowballed in some situations, especially with the clients that really struggle with their back and forth communication. You could have a lot of uncategorized transactions, a lot of things potentially sitting in Ask My Accountant. You just have loose ends that have accumulated throughout the year because your clients haven't necessarily answered the things that you're looking for. And I have found that in our practice, anytime that we can make that communication back to us easier, faster, simpler, it really encourages the response time to speed up. So having something that clients can access on a mobile device, having something especially that they're able to attach and send documents as quickly as possible, even as quick as taking a picture on their mobile phone and sending to you securely, really increases the likelihood that you're going to receive the information that you need to actually close those books. So again, Smart Vault is just one example. We use TaxDome in our process as well, which is very similar. But again, I think that things to look for is the accessibility piece. Can your clients access what they need to really quickly, easily, at a click of a button in order to send you communication, documents, etc.? Because that's going to be what really drives them actually getting you everything that you need and giving you the opportunity to actually close those books. All right. So then, basic workflow example. This probably doesn't seem all that unusual to you. This is what most of us are looking at, or we're doing some version of this, but client uploads documents to portal, whatever portal you're using. Smart Vault happens to auto categorize receipts in some instances, so that's really nice and helpful. But QuickBooks is going to pull in your bank feed automatically. We definitely want that. We want the client taking pictures and uploading those copies of the receipts and attaching those automatically, although you can do that in Smart Vault as well. We want to be able to automatically send those things to our tax prep software. Tax Caddy, or also last week, An example of organizers for tax prep, we talked to Stanford Tax last week. You can go watch that demo on that Tax Academy recording. And then we want to be able to export to tax software. So the reason I'm putting this up there is because this is an ideal world where the technology is doing a lot of these things for us. So the goal here is that we're not touching things, right? Like we want as little touching as possible. We want the technology to be feeding a lot of this information for us. We want AI to be recognizing where transactions might be going awry or making suggestions about where they should be going, cutting down our touch time as much as possible. So we want to have the technology be such that it's easy to use, easily accessible, encourages our clients to upload things to us because it's not cumbersome for them to do so. We want those automatic bank feeds because we want the AI to be able to be making suggestions for us, putting things where they belong. And we're going to talk in a couple of minutes about how to use technology specifically in QuickBooks to identify transactions that might need to get cleaned up. We want some auto categorization suggestions on receipts, and we want to be able to push that to our tax software. So that's where we're cutting out a lot of manual time, a lot of back and forth communication, and a lot of having to go back and continuously retouch the same files. Where did we leave off? What are we still missing? So those are the key components that you're looking for if you're assessing any version of technology, even if it's not necessarily the ones that we're talking about today. And then Letitia, I did see your question. Yes, the recording of this will be available after today's webinar. Okay. So let's pause for a second because I've been talking for a couple of minutes. Let's pull up our second polling question. What percentage of your year-end review process is currently automated? So that means that technology is doing the work for you. It's either, assessing where things are still open, where transactions are uncategorized, any part of your close process is automated so that you're not manually going in, reviewing all of these files, manually sending emails or communications to clients. How much of your current year-end review process is automated? We'll just leave that up there for a minute. All right. Give you guys about 10 more seconds. If you're trying to grab your CPE certificate, don't forget to answer this poll question. We're not going to talk about it today, but we do have some great recordings on the YouTube channel on how to use ChatGPT for data analysis, less than 25% or 25 to 50. Okay, so basic automation. So no significant automation, which makes this even more exciting because hopefully this will actually be helpful to all of you to drive some more automation. Awesome. Yes, I'm not going to talk about ChatGPT specifically today or those types of tools, but we do have several really awesome recordings on the YouTube channel that talk about how to use ChatGPT for data analysis. I'm going to go over custom reports in QuickBooks today to help you do a little bit more data analysis. So those are some fun tools that you can start using to drive some more of that automation for you. So this Tally4 is a tool that if you are prepping tax returns, I think is a little bit more valuable to you. But if you're working with tax preparers that are using Tally4, definitely be asking for these reports to be sent back to you if you're not the tax preparer. So Tally4 is a software that will integrate with QuickBooks. So once the books are closed and done, you can pull that right into their system, pulls in a nice trial balance for you. And then you are also able to switch it accrual to cash, depending on what view it is that you want to be looking for. What I really like about this is it gives you the opportunity to put your tax journal entries directly in here. So it's not going to write back to QuickBooks, meaning we can do some tax journal entries that might need to be done for the sake of the tax return, if that's a depreciation entry that doesn't necessarily match the books, something of that nature. You can tell the software if it's a book journal entry that does need to go back to the actual books, because sometimes we do find those. We're in the middle of prepping the tax return and we're like, oh, we didn't record depreciation and it does need to be on the books. So you can tell it which one is which, or maybe you have both. But what's really nice about this is that it prints out a really beautiful journal entry report, and you can tell it if this is something that needs to go back to the books, is just for the sake of the tax return, if we're just reclassifying something for the sake of the tax return. And what's great is that, again, if you're maybe just doing the books, this is a really gorgeous report for you to get to see any journal entries that the tax preparer is suggesting that you now need to go make. Or if you just want to be able to see what the book to tax differences are, this gives you just that really clear view. And then, speaking of integrations to the tax software, once everything is adjusted accordingly in Tally 4, the information can be pushed to most of the major tax prep softwares directly from here. So if you're dealing with clients that have some book to tax differences, or again, if you're dealing with a lot of tax preparers who are making a lot of tax journal entries or year-end entries after you've already given them the books and you're trying to get those things back from them, worth asking if they're using this software to get those really beautiful reports. Or if you happen to be doing both ends of the process, this is a nice, clean, easy way to make sure that you have the documentation of what all of those entries are. And again, a lot of the times we don't want to make those changes on the books per se. These are just things that we're trying to document for the sake of preparing the tax return. Okay. So let's talk about creating custom reports for year-end review and data validation. So the point behind all of this is to help you to more efficiently, again, without some type of a manual review, identify where do we have transactions that aren't in the right spot? Maybe they're unclassified, maybe they are not recorded properly. Just something is potentially out of place. And instead of spending a ton of time manually reviewing something, doing a data analysis, we want to figure out what are some quick ways that we can make QuickBooks work for us. So, how do we run some custom reports that are actually going to just feed some of this data to us so that we can make quick analytical decisions about what needs to potentially be worked on before we close the books for the end of the year? So I'll apologize to you. I didn't create a like sandbox company in QuickBooks to show this to you live. So I tried to give you as many step-by-step instructions for you. And I gave you some screenshots of some of the selections that I did so that you can try this in your own QuickBooks files, try filtering some of these reports so that you can get some of this information. So things that I like to look at the end of the year: unreconciled transactions. There is a whole host of things that could potentially be going wrong in unreconciled transactions. We all know that, of course, there are really things at the end of the year that may not have cleared the bank or cleared credit card statements, and that's okay when we are certain that that's where they belong. But what inevitably ends up happening during the year, especially if your clients have access to their books and they're maybe making changes, is that there's this great possibility for something to just get sort of stuck in there that maybe doesn't belong. Potentially a duplicate transaction just didn't get matched properly. So, how do we really, really quickly just figure out what those are instead of having to dig through or go line by line with some type of general ledger report? That doesn't make any sort of sense. So, this step by step, running a transaction report. The easiest way to do that is if you actually go into QuickBooks Online and you go to transactions in whichever bank account or credit card you want to start with, you just go ahead and select that account. You can then filter what you're looking at in that specific account to check off some specific fields. So let me just skip forward for a second and I'll show you what I mean. So we can filter that specific account to tell us, you can see right here, whoop, sorry, my mouse scroll got excited. You can see right here, I'm in my operating account and I've selected certain transaction types. You don't have to do that per se. You could just leave that as all if you wanted to. But if you wanted to say, I just want to see uncleared checks, for example, you can go in and filter by your check as transaction type and then see this cleared box. If you check that off and switch this over to just be uncleared, that is a really fast way to pull up anything that hasn't cleared out of this account in the reconciliations that you've done so far for the year. So again, like I said, if you're like, I need to know if there's duplicate transactions somewhere, I want to go look at all my uncleared checks. I want my client to be able to research, are these really uncleared? What happened? Do these need to get voided out for some reason? This is the fastest way to run this report. And then you can obviously filter by other types of things as well, but specifically for uncleared transactions, super, super fast. And if you add this to your year-end close process, really great way to clean out items that just don't belong in there and you don't want to carry them forward through the next year. Probably all of us, just having my years of experience, most of us, especially if you're working with small business clients, you have taken on some type of project where, there could be years worth of uncleared transactions in there because they just didn't necessarily know how to properly reconcile, et cetera. So this is just a really fast way to filter those and give you some more information on what do I need to potentially clean up, clear out, ask my client about. And then this is what it looks like. So this just gives you some sample transactions of I filtered all of this for ABC Inc. And this is what it gave me. And now I can just export this to Excel. Maybe I know what these are. Maybe I can look at that and go, oh, yeah, this is a duplicate transaction. I can see the real one recorded in August. I can go ahead and void this. Or maybe it's just easier for me to send this report to my client as part of my year-end close process and say, hey, John, Jill, I need you to take a look at this. These are uncleared transactions. Do they need further research? Do you know if these need to be voided, et cetera? However you handle those back and forth communications, but that makes it nice and easy to identify. So another really helpful tool is finding transactions that might have missing documentation. Now, I know not everybody requires clients to upload documentation and attach to every transaction, or maybe that's not part of your processes, but if you're working with clients who are really relying on QuickBooks as their document management system, or if it is your policy and procedure to have them attach documents to every transaction. This is a really great way to filter where you have missing documents. So you actually just go into expenses right here. I left this at all transactions, but again, in this space on that upper left-hand corner, you can filter if you just want to look for like checks that have missing documentation, what have you. And then all you're going to do is you're going to just filter this by the attachment column. And if the attachments column isn't there right away, you can hit the gear icon, and I showed you right here what the categories were that I checked off, where you can just go ahead and check this attachments box right here, and that attachments column will be there for you. So you can see right here, this transaction says one attachment, whereas the rest of them don't have anything in this column. So you can say, all right, well, it looks like we're missing a bunch of receipts for gas and Amazon purchases. There may be a Home Depot card that we haven't gotten receipts for. And this is a nice value add to give to your clients. Again, even if you're not requiring them to do this, or even if you're not preparing the tax return, just purely from an advisory standpoint, this is a really great value add to point out to them, hey, just as an FYI, I noticed in QuickBooks that you don't have your receipts uploaded for your gas transactions. Make sure that you've kept those, that you have that documentation, organize them into a folder, and make sure that you save it as part of your audit documentation for that tax return in the future. You guys are so quiet. I was expecting more in the Q&A box, so just make sure that you pop that in if there's anything that I can specifically answer for you. So in terms of more data validation, just kind of looking for things that are out of place. So again, I tried to give you some step-by-step instructions so that you can do this on your own, but things that you can filter through. Filtering through for negative balances where they don't belong. So just really quick review of your financial statements before you close out the year. You can filter negative balances where they don't belong, mismatched accounts receivable or accounts payable. So that's another really fast way to identify any types of transactions that are just maybe hanging out there, but they shouldn't be. Something cleared somewhere else and it just didn't get matched. And then duplicate transactions, unclassified expenses. So all of these filters can be used to create custom reports. And then of course in QuickBooks, you can save your customization too. So if there's one of these that you really, really like, if you're just like, oh, well, I really like that unreconciled transaction report, I want to be able to run this for all of my clients really quickly, you can do the customization of the report that I just showed you, and then you can save that customization too. So that report is just there for you to click off every time you go into QuickBooks. Murph, you're so sweet. I'm organized and thorough, so you guys don't have any questions. Perfect. Good. Letitia, yes, the copy of the PowerPoint presentation, if you scroll up, there should be a PDF at the beginning of the chat. It's just a little bit below some of the initial communication. And then we can perfect, Matt, thank you so much. So Matt just popped that back in the chat box for you. So if you didn't get a chance to grab the slides, go ahead and grab them right there. Awesome. So Angie, I didn't pull an example of how to filter for the duplicate transactions. So I have my contact information at the end, or I'll pop it right into the chat box right here. There we go. So if you want to shoot me an email afterwards, I'm going to pop my email address right into the chat right there. Anything that I didn't give you an exact step-by-step instruction for that you're like, oh, I'm not figuring out how she filtered this, go ahead and shoot me an email and I will send you the exact filters that I used for that afterwards. Good question. And again, I apologize because I didn't create a sandbox company. Otherwise, I'd pull up QuickBooks for you and give you the step-by-step while we're chatting. Okay. Probably a good spot for me to pause. I got to make sure I ask all of my polling questions here. All right. Integration challenges. So let's pull up polling question 3. Integration challenges. Which QuickBooks integration challenge most affects your year-end efficiency? And I gave you a few options. Maybe you're not mapping, historical data is not coming in, dealing with multi-entity consolidations. I only gave you a few options. Maybe those don't apply, but we'll see. If you do have an integration challenge that I didn't list, go ahead and pop that in the chat too, because I'm always genuinely curious what people are struggling with the most. And maybe that will be our next webinar subject. All right, we'll give that like 15 more seconds. Just last reminder, if you need your CPE certificate, make sure you click that polling question. Oh, Murph, very nice. Rumor has it that Intuit Enterprise Suite will have a highly sophisticated duplicate transaction auto detection that will even be multi-entity. I love that. Beautiful. All right, custom field mapping between systems. Yes, that is a super pain, especially if you're dealing with multiple entities. I do have an integration that we're going to talk about in a minute that might help with that a little bit. But if you just saw Murph share that maybe the Enterprise Suite is coming out with that. Kathleen, I so agree with you. I need someone that can build Zaps for me. I know I have to tell you that I'm the worst with Zapier. Although, okay, so I'm gonna go off script for a minute and I'm gonna give you guys a couple of tips. And again, I know that we have done presentations on this in the past. Maybe I'll have to do another one. You guys are inspiring me as for our next tax talk coming up, which will be February. So kind of in the throes of tax season, but um ChatGPT's data analysis tool will do some of this for you. So again, Anna, I see your question too. Just shoot me an email. My email address is right above your question in the chat. Just copy that, paste it, shoot me a quick email and say, send me the instructions for duplicate transactions. ChatGPT can do some of this for you. Now, you do have to kind of consider what your internal policies are on uploading your client's data to an open AI system. And I've talked about that in webinars before too. You need to scrub it for any type of identifying information. But you can upload data to like an exported general ledger and ask it to identify duplicate transactions for you, and it'll do it about 3 seconds. And then, Kathleen, you just said that you need somebody to build Zaps for you. ChatGPT will do that too. So if you're looking for a specific Zap and instructions on how to create it, just type it into ChatGPT. Ask it to write the Zap connection for you. Say like, I want to integrate QuickBooks to, I don't know, HubDoc, which it does automatically, but maybe you want some type of different Zap that isn't already there. Ask GPT to write the instructions for you. And if Zapier is capable of creating the Zap, it'll give you the step-by-step instructions on how to step it up. Murph, you're getting ahead of me. Cavinci's multi-entity reporting provides a map. We're going to talk about that. So map my chart of account. Yes, we're going to talk about that in just a minute, but you gave everybody a teaser. So I love that feature of Cavinci. I definitely included it here because I think it does a really beautiful job. So since we're getting ahead, so just basic API concepts. Again, this is just to kind of give you an idea of what it is that you're looking for. I try to make sure that I'm always sharing like multiple options for people to consider in terms of things that I think work so that you can find what works the best for you. But if you're looking for API integration, things that you want is something that's going to sync to both client portal and document management system if you're using two separate ones. So integration, like if you're using QuickBooks, you want both your client portal and your document management system to all be syncing back and forth. You basically want to have a nice symbiotic relationship between all of your technologies with as little duplication as possible. So you want to be looking at what integrations are available anytime you're considering any new piece of technology. Automating document management and retention. Again, this partly goes towards managing your client behavior. We know that they are just really not going to get back to us unless we make it as simple and easy as possible for them. We want them to be able to send us the things that we need at the click of a button. Even more ideal is we want the things that they're sending us to automatically go where they belong. So those are things that you want to look for automated document management and retention is, are these things able to be sent to me really easily so that the client actually does it? And then is there some feature that is helping them to go where they actually belong? Because if everything just gets dumped in one spot, and we all have seen this, the client sends you a PDF and it's named like XYZ49A4Z42, and you have no idea what it is unless you have to open it, rename it, put it where it goes. And then pulling financial data into tax software. Anytime we can have a nice integration, and I did promise you guys I would talk about strategic partnerships at the end. Anytime we can have a nice integration between book and tax, it just is obviously going to make everybody else's life easier. So popular third-party tools, things to this is high-level things to think about. Connecting your CRM, so that's more contact management, but you have your client information already in QuickBooks, most likely. You are invoicing them, you have their contact information, you have their business names. Being able to pull that out and have that integrate with some type of a client communication system is really a beautiful integration, because then maybe you use it to build your newsletter base, or maybe you need to send out mass communications to your clients on a regular basis, like at the beginning of tax season or the end of the year when you need a lot of information from them. You want to be able to have integration with data analysis tools. So I showed you some custom reports that you can run right in QuickBooks, but if you're using an outside data analysis tool, you don't want to be exporting and importing in order to get that data over to analyze, right? That's taking too much of your time. So we want direct export to the data analysis tool. That's a really important piece of having something really work for you. Taking advantage of AI. We talked about ChatGPT a little bit, but of course, we're seeing a lot of the softwares like QuickBooks that we're already using building in AI components. So those are what I like to refer to as smart features, where the software starts to be able to read patterns specifically in the data and identify things. For example, hey, you categorized Burger King as meals and entertainment for the last 6 months, and then this month you put it to office supplies. Are you sure you want to do that? So those are the types of things that AI is starting to be able to do for us, and a lot of that is getting built into software that we're already using. So I think that my takeaway on that is that if you are already utilizing different pieces of technology in your practice, look to see if there's an AI component being built in or currently available to you before you look outside of it. Because again, we want to have, that nice symbiotic relationship with as little duplication as possible. Things like Bill.com, AP and AR automation, getting that information back over to QuickBooks. They have an integration. So the name of the game is to have like all of these pieces, married to each other in this nice little technology family where at the click of one button, you're able to, capture, record, analyze, document, and then do what you need to do with it. If it's, just close out the books, send financial statements, prepare a tax return, etc. All right, advanced troubleshooting. Hour always goes by so fast. So I said I would talk about Covinci. If you're doing any type of multi-entity consolidation, or really, even if you don't necessarily need to prepare consolidated financial statements or a consolidated return, if you've got an enterprise that has a whole bunch of related parties, like talking about mapping and things like that, inevitably what happens where you've got all these related parties is, you've got party A, A LLC that calls, their account office supplies and materials. And then you've got related party B that calls it like office supplies, and they don't exactly match each other. And so most software in that instance doesn't recognize those things as an exact match when you're trying to do some type of a consolidation or you're trying to look at related party transactions. So Covinci does this really beautiful consolidations mapping process that is very similar to tax mapping out, like where you're mapping your accounts in QuickBooks to push the tax return. So you set it up one time to map your related party accounts. In other words, it doesn't matter that you've got, one office supplies account named one thing and another office supplies account named something else. You can map them both to go to office supplies in a consolidated report. And then you're able to use that once that mapping is set up, you're able to use that continuously in the future where you have these companies that might have more than one entity, different QuickBooks files, but you're trying to figure out cohesively, like what did the enterprise spend on office supplies? Or maybe you do have to prepare some type of consolidated return, or they want to look at, what were the intercompany transactions? What do the consolidated financial statements look like? Things like that. So that is something to consider if you have clients that look like that, or they're asking questions around, what did the enterprise spend in a whole? Is this company funding that company? It can be really difficult when you have very varied charts of accounts. So like I said, once you set that mapping up once in Kavinci, it's available to you across those multiple QuickBooks accounts that you might have for one enterprise. So that's a great tool to solve that particular problem. We talked a little bit about ChatGPT. We didn't talk about Keeper, but that was another vendor that we had on our Tax Academy call last week. So again, if you're interested in looking at any of those demos, go ahead and grab that recording, and you can hear directly from the vendors about some of these features. ProConnect was on there, Keeper was on there, Stanford Tax and Ignition were all on there last week. So if you want to go watch that recording at your leisure because you're curious about any of their features. But one of the things I really liked about Keeper was that data analysis. They connect right to QuickBooks, read-write capability, and their AI component is starting to be able to identify things like, hey, you've consistently recorded this to this account, and then last month you put it here. Do you really want to do that? Super useful tools that integrate really beautifully with QuickBooks if you want to check that out. Um, Things that you'd be looking for, the ability to review miscategorized transactions, those duplicates, those unreconciled things that we talked about, tracking vendor payments for 1099s. So we know that QuickBooks does this, but it does require some proper input. So if there's tools that you can utilize to help make that easier for you so that you're getting accurate 1099 reporting. And then Keeper also gives you the ability to send like uncategorized transactions directly to your client with read write capability, which I know some people like and some people don't. But if your clients categorize them for you, it will push that information back to QuickBooks. So it saves you on the manual process of having to go back in, look at their answers, then have somebody manually update QuickBooks for you. Year-end cleanup checklist, if you just want to save this for your own information or things that are helpful for you. I will just kind of skip over this because you guys can read it on your own. But from a tax prep perspective, these are the things that we look for to be done in our own practice, or if we're receiving books from somebody else before we prepare a return. So you can just save this for your next tax season rainy day. I did just want to point out Intuit Assist. So this is already in QBO. If you're not utilizing it, this is a really great tool that you can start utilizing now. And this gives you just some of the things that we talked about. Oh, I keep moving my scroll button. Some of the things that we talked about, just identifying some transactions that you might want to bring to your attention. So this is just like a bring to your attention thing. Overdue invoices, cash flow concerns, things like that, suggested autofill on different items. So that's something that you can go take a look at if you're not already using it. It will be right at the top on the sort of like center right of your QBO screen, and you can start looking at this with all of your clients. Or this is also a really great tool to just direct your clients to, especially if you have a difficult time with them getting back to you on things, or maybe they're asking you questions that you're not engaged to answer about the analysis on their books. You can just point them to Intuit Assist and see if that's helpful for them. So things in terms of strategic partnerships with tax preparers, again, if you are an advanced bookkeeper who's doing a lot of this year-end review, doing a lot of this cleanup, and then not preparing the tax return, this is like insider secrets. All of you who are preparing tax returns are probably going to give me a negative review for this, but you should be offering this to the bookkeepers that you're building strategic partnerships with. You should be charging for clean books, or you should be paid for clean books, right? So there's a benefit from our perspective We do bookkeeping, but we work with a lot of bookkeepers who have great relationships with their clients and they don't do any tax preparation. So they're looking to build a strategic partnership with us to prepare their return when it comes to be tax time. And we're happy to do that. And I'm happy to compensate them for giving us really beautiful, clean, closed books that I don't need to do any sort of data analysis on. So that could look like revenue sharing, maybe a discount that I'm going to pass on to their clients, and they can decide whether or not they're going to absorb that discount or share it with their clients. But if you're doing a lot of these value add things, if you're building client documentation collection into your automated process, that was one of the things that we talked about today. You're giving to the tax preparer this beautiful package with a bow on it, and all I need to do, or if you have the integration available, like if you're sharing your QuickBooks and you've already tax mapped everything for them and they're just hitting a button and doing a final review of the return, the heavy lift has really been done by you in the bookkeeping process and the year-end close process. So you should really be talking to tax preparers that you have strategic partnerships with or that you're referring your clients to have their tax returns prepared, what they're willing to do for you because you're providing them a superior product than somebody who is not doing these things. If I'm getting something that has to, it's not closed properly, there's negative accounts, I can tell that there's duplicate transactions, things are in uncategorized expenses, I now have to do a lot more work before I can prepare a return. So you're providing a superior product to those tax preparers. You should definitely be compensated for that. So ask them about revenue share, discounts that you can absorb or pass on because you're providing that superior product for them. So the hour always goes by super fast. We're already at 3 o'clock. If you have any last minute questions that I can answer for you, pop it into the Q&A really quickly. But again, I did put my email into the chat box for you. It's also on this last slide. So if there's anything that you want to follow up on that I didn't answer for you, I know a lot of you were asking about that duplicate transactions filter. Shoot me an email. I'll send you out the instructions. I really appreciate all of you having me. Hopefully this was helpful, and I hope that everybody has a really easy and efficient year end and enjoys the holidays. Thank you, Murph. Have a great afternoon.